Simulan mong abutin ang iyong pangarap na magbibigay dangal sa iyong bukas. Ang suliranin, hindi laging nandyan, dapat mong harapin. Kami iyong kasama sa bawat takin, magkaakbay nating lulutasin. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, ang boses mo ay mahalaga. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, ikaw lagi ang bida. Ang mga aral ay ginintuang atin ng bawat guro na siyang gagabay sa iyong pagkamulat. Naway umukit ito sa iyong isipan, maging mapanuri, sundin ng wasto at nararapat. Kagandahang asal ang ipakita, ipadama ang pusong may malasakit. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, ang boses mo ay mahalaga. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, ikaw lagi ang bida. Sakali mang tayo'y subukin ng unos, ating haharapin ng walang takot. Sasamahan ka ni Fernan at Dino, ang bagong barkada mo. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, boses mo ay mahalaga. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, edukasyon mo'y sigurado na. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, boses mo ay mahalaga. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, edukasyon mo'y sigurado na.
Fernandino Teens TV.
Kumusta ka na, Nan? Nasaan na ba si Dino?
Eto, namimiss ko na ang face-to-face class.
Oo nga, nakakamiss ang banding nating magkakaibigan. Lalo na ngayon, wala si Dino.
Speaking of bonds, alam mo bang ang atoms ay nagpo-form din ng bonds?
Wow, paano kaya sila nagbaband?
Malalaman natin yan kung makikinig tayo sa ating teacher-lecturer sa araw na ito. Tara!
Halina't makinig. Let's G!
Good morning, Fernandino Teens. It is another great learning day. I am Sir Arnel Gomez, your science teacher lecturer for today, saying, life is fun when science has begun. Congratulations for finishing the first quarter. You deserve a thumbs up. How are you doing, Fernandino Teens? I hope you're all well, staying safe and healthy. The pandemic has changed our lives in many ways. No one predicted the scale of this crisis. Every single one of us has been out of our normal routine. At a time when we all face uncertainties and feel anxiety because of the COVID-19, remember to always see situations with a silver lining. Instead of brooding and agonizing on things we cannot control, why not use this time to strengthen the bond between our family? Bonding, not only with our family but also with our friends, is important for our social and emotional state. Do you know that like humans, atoms form bonds as well? That is what we call chemical bonding. How do atoms bond together? Why do they form chemical bonds? We will answer these questions as we go through this episode. So grab your self-learning modules, paper, periodic table and pen, and join me as we discover the world of chemistry in this episode entitled, My Name is Bond, Chemical Bond. Not James Bond, not even a rubber band, but chemical bond. Here are the learning objectives of today's episode. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to first, explain how ions are formed. Second, form ionic and covalent bonds between elements. Third, classify the covalent compounds as polar and nonpolar covalent bonds. Before we proceed further, it is important to look back on your past lessons that are in some ways related to our topic for today. In grade 7, you were able to describe the properties of metals, nonmetals, and metalloids, and to recognize elements and compounds. In grade 8, on the other hand, you observed different changes in matter, such as evaporation, condensation, melting, freezing, sublimation, and deposition. You have also learned that the elements are systematically arranged and grouped in the periodic table of elements. Your knowledge indeed is continuously growing. To help you understand your lesson better, let us unlock some vocabulary words through the text quiz game. Simply rearrange the letters to help you answer the questions. You may write your answer on a sheet of paper or type your answer in the comment box below. Are you ready, Fernandino teens? Let us start. Question: what do you call the tabular display of the chemical elements? Very good. The answer is periodic table. Periodic table of elements is a tabular display of the chemical elements. On many periodic tables, the elements in the ladder-like line are the metalloids, which have the properties of both metals and nonmetals. The metals are located on the left side of the ladder-like line, except for hydrogen, which is a nonmetal, and the nonmetals are located on the right side of the ladder-like line. Question: what are the electrons found in the outermost energy level of an atom? You are correct. The answer is valence electrons. Valence electrons are the electrons found in the outermost energy level of an atom. During chemical reactions, atoms of elements use their valence electrons to form bonds and linkages with other atoms. When they enter a chemical reaction, atoms tend to lose, gain, or share electrons to form compounds and molecules. The number of valence electrons of an element can be determined by the group in the periodic table in which the element is categorized. This is true to all groups except for 3b to 2b, which are known as the transition metals. Question: what rule states that to attain maximum stability, an atom needs to lose, gain, or share electrons until 8 valence electrons are found on its outermost energy level? Splendid! The answer is octet rule. Octet rule states that to attain maximum stability, an atom needs to lose, gain, or share electrons until 8 valence electrons are found on its outermost energy level. Noble gases, which have 8 valence electrons, except helium with only 2 valence electrons, are not reactive because they have very stable electron configurations. Question: what is the tendency of an atom to attract electrons? Splendid. The answer is electron negativity. Electron negativity is a measure of the tendency of an atom to attract electrons. The higher its value, the higher its tendency to attract electrons. Electron negativity varies in a predictable way across the periodic table. It increases from left to right across periods and decreases from top to bottom. Thus, Fluorine is the most electronegative element, while francium is one of the least electronegative. Take note that generally, Group 8A or noble gases is an exemption because they already attained maximum stability and they do not need to attract electrons anymore. But there are instances that krypton Kr and xenon Xe form bonds with other atoms. Question: what is the energy needed to pull or remove one or more electrons from a neutral atom? Good job. The answer is ionization energy. Ionization energy is the energy needed to pull or remove one or more electron or electrons from a neutral atom. The lower the ionization energy, the easier it is to remove its valence electrons. Ionization energy varies in a predictable way across the periodic table. It increases from left to right across periods and decreases from top to bottom. Thus, helium has the highest first ionization energy, while francium has one of the lowest ionization energies. What a great job, Fernandino teens! We will go deeper into our lesson when Fernandino Teens TV Season 2 returns. So stay tuned!
Ang Schools Division Office City of San Fernando, Pampanga ay kaisa ng Department of Education sa pagsasagawa ng mga proyekto at programa na tumutugon sa mga pangangailangan ng mga mag-aaral. Inilunsad ang Division Call Center for Tutors and Guidance Counselors upang magbigay ng educational at psychological assistance sa mga mag-aaral, magulang at stakeholders ng Division. Kaya, kung may nais kayong itanong tungkol sa pag-aaral, maaaring magpadala ng mensahe sa Division Call Center for Tutors and Guidance Counselors Facebook page o tumawag sa mga numero na makikita sa ibaba ng inyong screen tuwing Lunes hanggang Biyernes sa ganap na alas 8 ng umaga hanggang alas 6 ng gabi. Maaari rin kayong sumangguni sa ating guidance counselors na nagbibigay ng guidance and counseling services. Lahat ng inyong ibabahagi ay mananatiling confidential. Ang nasabing programa ay nagsisilbi ring daan upang malaman ang feedbacks ng stakeholders para matulungan ang ating divisyon na mapagbuti pa ang mga sumusunod na programa. Ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Tumawag na sa aming mga numero o bumisita na sa aming Facebook page at magpadala ng inyong mga katanungan.
Fernandino Teens TV.
Welcome back, Fernandino teens. Let us continue our meaningful discussion. In mathematics, we have positive and negative integers. We use positive and negative numbers to describe and understand quantities that have opposite directions or values, such as sea levels, temperature, and money. In chemistry, atoms can either be positive or negative. It will happen when an atom gains or loses an electron. An atom that has either a positive or a negative charge is called an ion. But how do ions form? You have learned in your previous year that noble gases have stable electron configurations and that atoms can either gain or lose electrons in order to achieve those configurations. All atoms in general are neutral. That is, they have an equal number of protons and electrons. An ion is formed whenever a neutral atom gains or loses an electron. Look at this figure. What happened when the sodium atom loses one electron? Correct! It became a positively charged ion because it has more protons than electrons. This positively charged ion is called a cation. How about when fluorine atom received one electron? Correct. It became a negatively charged ion because it has more electrons than protons. This negatively charged ion is termed as an anion. The periodic table of elements provides a quick reference for the possible list of ions. The metallic and non-metallic elements tend to form ions. Group 1A, alkali metals, always form cations with positive 1 charge. Group 2A, alkaline earth metals, always form cations with positive 2 charge. Group 3A, aluminum metals, always form cations with positive 3 charge. Group 4A, carbon group, tend to form cations with positive 4 or anions with negative 4 charge. Group 5A, nitrogen group, when acting as a nonmetal, forms an ion with a positive 5 or negative 3 charges. Group 6A, oxygen group, tend to form anions with negative 2 charge. Group 7A, halogens, always tend to form anions with negative 1 charge. Remember that in writing the charge or net charge, number must be written first before the charge. Example, Ca 2 positive or O 2 negative. Magnitude first before the charge. Remember that in group 8A or noble gases do not form ions because they already have 8 valence electrons with helium as exemption. They can no longer receive or donate electrons. But there are instances that krypton Kr and xenon Xe react with other elements. They are some of the exemptions to the octet rule. On the other hand, group B elements consist of multiple oxidation numbers. That's why the rule is not applicable to them. Now that you know how ions formed, you are now ready to learn how atoms bond together. Take a look at this picture. What can you see in the picture? Correct, a salt shaker. Do you know the reason why I have shown it to you? It is because you can find 2 extremely common ions in table salt. Table salt is called sodium chloride. NaCl sodium chloride is a sodium ion Na positive, a cation, combined with a chloride ion, Cl negative, and an ion. Just as magnets with opposite poles attract one another, the sodium ion is attracted to the chloride ion and a bond is formed from the attraction between a positive and negative ion. In the periodic table of elements, there are 118 known elements, but there are more substances in nature than 118 pure elements. This is because of the capacity of an atom to react and combine with other atoms to form new compounds through chemical bonding. So, what is chemical bonding? Chemical bonding refers to the formation of a chemical bond between 2 or more atoms, molecules or ions to form a new chemical compound. These chemical bonds are what keep the atoms together in the resulting compound. Atoms form chemical bonds to attain stability by attaining 8 valence electrons as stated in the octet rule, with some exemptions to the rule. There are 3 types of chemical bonding: ionic, covalent, and metallic bonds. Ionic bond. Ionic bond is formed between 2 atoms by the transfer of electrons. It occurs when a metal reacts with a nonmetal. Metals in 1A, 2A, and 3A lose electrons and become cations or positive ions. Nonmetals in 5A, 6A, and 7A gain electrons from metals, thus becoming anion or negative ions. Elements in 4A have the tendency to gain or lose electrons. Before we proceed to how ionic bonds are formed, you must learn first how to construct LEDs. LEDs is the acronym used in Lewis electron dot structure, which was named after Gilbert and Lewis. Leads is also known as the Lewis symbol that is used to show the number of valence electrons of an atom. It consists of an elemental symbol surrounded by one dot for each of its valence electrons. We can construct leads by following these steps. First, write the symbol of the element. For example, the symbol for carbon is capital C. Second, identify the number of valence electrons based on the group number of the periodic table. This is applicable only for group or family A. The number of valence electrons of carbon is 4. Third, represent the electrons using dots and place them around the four sides of the symbol. Please take note that there should be no more than 2 electrons on each side. For carbon, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There you have it. This is the Lewis symbol for the atom carbon. Let us have another example. Oxygen. The first step is to write the symbol of the element oxygen, which is capital O. The second is to identify the number of valence electrons. The number of valence electrons of oxygen is 6. The third step is to place dots around the four sides of the symbol. So, starting at the right, draw 6 electrons or dots counterclockwise around the symbol. Going back to our example earlier, table salt or sodium chloride forms an ionic bond. Sodium is a metal and loses its one valence electron to chlorine, and as it loses an electron, it becomes a cation. Chlorine is a nonmetal and receives one electron from sodium, thus becoming an ion. To show the transfer of electrons between the cations and anions, here are the steps that you can follow. Step 1. Draw the Lewis symbol of the two elements involved. For example, in sodium chloride, the Lewis symbol of sodium is this. And this is for chlorine. Step 2. With the use of an arrow, show the complete transfer of electrons. For the sodium atom to be stable, it must lose an electron. For the chlorine atom, on the other hand, it must gain an electron to achieve stability. The one valence electron of the sodium atom will be transferred to the chlorine atom as shown in the diagram. Step 3. Show the resulting ions. For example, sodium atom loses one electron and becomes a positive ion or a cation. Chlorine atom, on the other hand, gains one electron, thus becoming a negative ion or an ion. Step 4. Write the chemical formula. Remember that in writing chemical formula, the cation is always first and the anion is always last. Crisscross the numbers only, excluding the charge signs in writing the oxidation number of one element as a subscript for the other. For example, crisscross the oxidation number of sodium, which is 1, to the oxidation number of chlorine, which is 1. It will become like this. When the subscript is 1, there is no need to write it in the final resulting compound or formula. Thus, this is the final resulting chemical formula of sodium chloride. Since you already know how to form ionic bonds, let us have an activity. You may write your answer on a sheet of paper. Here is the instruction. Draw arrows to show the transfer of electrons between elements during ionic bonding and write the resulting chemical formula. Are you ready? Number 1, lithium and chlorine. Here is the answer. Did you get the same answer? Very good. Let us proceed with the next one. Number 2, calcium and oxygen. Awesome, Fernandino teens. This is the ionic bonding of calcium and oxygen. Let us have the last one. Number 3, potassium and fluorine. Nice job! This is the illustration of the transfer of electrons from potassium to fluorine. You are indeed amazing, Fernandino teens! If a metal and a non-metal can form ionic bonding by transferring of electrons, how about if two non-metals will react with one another? What kind of bond will be formed? We will answer this question when Fernandino Teens TV Season 2 returns. So do not change your channel and we will be right back.
Maya po oras kaya kayo, Fernandinos. Ako pala ay Elwin Arl Serrano ng City Tourism Office ng Ciudad San Fernando. Ngayong bulan na ini, pagmasusyan tayo ang National Heritage Month na ating temang Victory and Humanity, Upholding Filipino Heritage and Identity. Kambena nini, metong karang aktibidades na ng syudad, atin ning launching ng bayong Heritage Passport. Yung Heritage Passport, apin ning metong karing proyekto ng kaya katamong syudad, yung pamanamuna ng Mayor Edwin D. Santiago. Anong nuka rin makalagelangan ding eganagan ng heritage sites, heritage structures, naakit tamo kin kay katamong heritage district. Makakayado din kini, ding importansya da ding mapil na tradisyon kay ni syudad, kalupa ng pamangawang parol, ang poing pamangalesa. May awo siyang heritage passport, uling atin kang dapat gawan, anong nukaran puntalan mo lading at tsuking passport, at saka ka mag-selfie. Kay ba't kanta, palto making tourism office, at mamiyalang sticker ka rin eganagan ng apuntulan mong lugar. At timong may ngari ang tutong passport. Balo mingeni, panahon na ini, etamo makain bisa lumal, uli na ng COVID-19 pandemic. Kaya naman kimbanwa nga ini, agkatan ko lading bikers tamo, edad 18 hanggang 50, imbis na lumaot kayo po, di na nyo lang dita ka oras di kaya katamong heritage structures kaya ni syudad. Anya naman karing mumunang 50 bikers ang makayari kaya katamong heritage passport, midinan lang premyong Only San Fernando loot bag. Inggawan nyo mo bakan ta makapag-register, punta kayo mismo opisina na ng City Tourism, yung munisipyo, at saka kayo magdalang metong valid ID. Kabinan kaya kayong heritage passport, ating makasipit ang instruction nung nano pa ing dapat gawan. Anya naman ka rin hanggang kapadyakin, nanano ko pa, tara na!
Fernandino Teens TV.
Welcome back, Fernandino teens. This is still Sir Arnel, your science teacher lecturer. Before the break, I left you questions to ponder on. What will happen if two nonmetals react with one another? What kind of bond will be formed? Two nonmetals can form a bond when they react with one another. This is called a covalent bond. Unlike ionic bonds, there is no complete transfer of electrons in covalent bonds, just sharing of electrons. A shared pair refers to a pair of electrons that is shared between atoms. An unshared pair, on the other hand, is a pair of electrons that is not shared between atoms. As you can see in the picture, the shared pairs of electrons are located inside the overlapping circles. The unshared pairs of electrons are located outside the overlapping circle. If you will use Lewis structure, the shared pair of electrons will be replaced by lines to its rate sharing. To share the sharing of electrons, follow these steps. Step 1. Get the total available electrons in a compound. For example, for carbon dioxide CO2, the carbon atom has 4 valence electrons, while the oxygen atom has 6 valence electrons. The total available valence electron is just the sum of the number of valence electrons that each atom possesses. So, 1 carbon atom times 4 is 4, and 2 oxygen atoms times 6 is 12. 4 plus 12 is 16. Therefore, the total available valence electron of CO2 carbon dioxide is 16. Step 2. Compute for the octet rule requirement that each atom should have 8 valence electrons to become stable. For the carbon atom, 1 times 8 is 8, and for the oxygen atom, since there are 2 oxygen atoms, 2 times 8 is 16. 8 plus 16 is 24. Step 3. Subtract your answer in step 2 from step 1, then divide the difference by 2 because a pair of shared electrons is equal to 1 bond. The quotient will give you the number of bonds around the central atom. For the number of bonds for CO2 carbon dioxide, 24 minus 16 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Thus, there will be 4 bonds surrounding a carbon atom as shown in the picture. Remember that this is not applicable when hydrogen is included because hydrogen forms only a single bond. Now that you know how to form covalent bonds, try the following compounds. You may write your answer on a sheet of paper. Are you ready? Let us start. Number 1, dinitrogen monoxide. Splendid, Fernandino teens. This is the answer. Next, number 2, phosphorus trichloride. Wow, you got it right. This is the correct illustration of sharing of electrons between sulfur and oxygen. Let's have the last one. Number 3, dinitrogen tetrasulfide. Very good. This is the covalent bonding between nitrogen and sulfur. You never fail to amaze me, Fernandino teens. There are 2 types of covalent bond, polar covalent bond and the nonpolar covalent bond. If the electron negativity difference is equal to 0.4 or less, it results in a nonpolar covalent bond. Diatomic molecules always form nonpolar covalent bonds because of the equal electron negativity values resulting in equal sharing of electrons. There are 7 members of diatomic molecules, namely oxygen gas, nitrogen gas, hydrogen gas, fluorine gas, chlorine gas, bromine gas, and iodine gas. If the electron negativity difference is 0.4 to 1.9, a polar covalent bond is formed. If the electron negativity difference is greater than 1.9, then the type of chemical bond is ionic. To get the electron negativity difference, subtract the smaller electron negativity from the larger one. For example, to determine the electron negativity difference of hydrochloric acid, HCl, subtract the electron negativity of the hydrogen atom from the chlorine atom. The electron negativity value of chlorine is 3.16, while hydrogen atom is 2.2. So, 3.16 minus 2.2 is 0.96. Since it ranges from 0.4 and to 1.9, the type of covalent bond that hydrochloric acid, HCl, has is polar. Let us have another example. Methane, CH4. The electron negativity value of the carbon atom is 2.55, while the hydrogen atom is 2.2. 2.55 minus 2.2 is 0.35. Since it is lower than 0.4, the type of covalent bond in CH4 methane is nonpolar. There are 3 kinds of covalent bonds based on the number of pairs of electrons shared between atoms. A single covalent bond is formed when 1 pair of electrons are shared between 2 atoms. 1 line indicates a single bond. A double covalent bond is formed by the two atoms sharing two pairs of electrons. Two lines indicate a double bond. Triple covalent bond is formed when a molecule shares three pairs of electrons between two atoms. Three lines indicate a triple bond. Salt is an ionic compound, while sugar is a covalent compound. Sugar and salt may look the same because they are both white crystalline solids, but they obviously taste different. This property suggests that they are very different from each other. Aside from their taste, how are sugar and salt different? Specifically, how will you differentiate between ionic and covalent compounds? To answer that, let us talk about the properties of ionic and covalent compounds. Ionic compounds exist as solid in room temperature, while covalent compounds may exist as solids, liquids, or gases. Ionic compounds have high melting and boiling points because of the strong electrostatic interactions between ions, while covalent compounds have low melting and boiling points because they are held together by weak intermolecular forces due to the sharing of electrons. Although solid ionic compounds do not conduct electricity because there are no free mobile ions or electrons, ionic compounds dissolved in water conduct electricity. Covalent compounds, on the other hand, do not conduct electricity. This is because they do not have charged particles capable of transporting electrons. In addition to that, ionic compounds are generally soluble in water, while covalent compounds are insoluble in water. Ionic compounds are insoluble in organic solvents, while covalent compounds are soluble. There is another type of bond called a metallic bond. A large number of metal atoms can share their valence electrons through a special type of bond called metallic bonding. Metallic bond is the sharing of electrons between many atoms of a metal element. Metals have low ionization energy, so they easily lose their outermost electrons. This type of bonding is different from a covalent and ionic bonding because the electrons are not moving around one nucleus. The positive atomic nuclei of the metal are surrounded by electrons, moving freely throughout the piece of metal. These moving electrons in metals are called sea of electrons. So, what holds the metal together are the strong forces of attraction between the positive nuclei and the freely moving electrons. The electron sea model explains many physical properties of metals, such as they are good electrical conductors because the electron flows freely in them. They are good conductors of heat because positive nuclei are close together that cause the heat to transfer easily. They are shiny. Light reflects or bounces off to the electrons. This makes the metals appear shiny, and the shiny appearance of some metal is called luster. They are ductile, which means that it can be melted down and shaped into long, skinny wires without breaking. That is why it can be used to make paper clips, wires inside the plug, and wires in toys. They are malleable, which means it can be shaped and flattened without breaking apart. Example, smashing an aluminum soda can. It can be flattened without breaking. When the same kind of metals or different kinds of metals are combined, they can easily form various shapes. An alloy is a combination of metals or metals combined with one or more elements. Example, gold, nickel, and zinc produce white gold. Silver and copper produces sterling silver. When iron is combined with non-metallic carbon or silicon, it produces an alloy called steel or silicon steel. The resulting substance with properties differs from those pure metals such as increased strength or hardness. We will have examples of ionic, covalent, and metallic compounds when Fernandino Teens TV Season 2 returns.
Hindi lamang sa larangan ng pangkabuhayan apektado ang maraming pamilyang Pilipino, kundi maging sa larangan ng pagkatuto ng bawat batang Pilipino. Inilunsad ng siyudad ng San Fernando ang programang Nurturing Environment and System for Thriving or NEST, isang education community pantry na naglalayon para sa isang malawakang pagtulong, paglantabay at paggabay na ang focus ay ang makapagbigay ng tulong at suporta sa ating mga mag-aaral sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng educational needs gaya na lamang ng school supplies, tutorial sessions, study tips, at iba pang mga pamamaraan na mas lalong makatutulong sa pag-angat ng ating edukasyon. Dahil hindi hadlang ang pandemya sa magandang kinabukasang naghihintay sa ating mga mag-aaral. Sino-sino nga ba ang mga kalahok sa programang ito? Sa pagtutulungan ng ating school administrators, guro, magulang, at iba pang mga miyembro ng ating komunidad gaya ng barangay officials at sangguniang kabataan ay siguradong magiging mas matagumpay ang programang ito. Paano nga ba ang magiging proseso ng naturang programa? Una, magkakaroon tayo ng isang Facebook group, ang Pampanga High School NEST Education Community Pantry na pangungunahan ng Educational Pantry Coordinator. Ang mga magulang, tagapangalaga at mga guro ay ia-add ng ating Educational Pantry members sa Facebook group na ito. Sa page na ito maaaring i-post ng mga magulang at tagapangalaga o sino mang miyembro ng Educational Pantry ang kanilang mga kahilingan o requests. Kailangan ding ilagay ang pangalan ng mag-aaral, grade at section para sa mas agarang aksyon. Oo nga pala, hindi lang requests ang pwedeng i-post. Pwede ring mag-post ang mga nais magbigay ng tulong o mga gustong mag-donate. Sabi nga nila, sharing is caring. Tandaan na ang Facebook group na ito ay pribado at posts na may kaugnayan lamang sa page na ito ang maaaprobahan. Mayroon din palang Google Form na ipamamahagi kung saan maaari nating isumite ang ating requests o kahilingan. Paano naman ang mga walang internet access sa bahay? Huwag mangamba dahil merong mga nakalaang drop boxes ang ating paaralan na kung saan maaaring ihulog ng mga magulang at tagapangalaga ang kanilang requests. Sa mga nais namang mag-donate ng school supplies, maaaring ilagay ang mga ito sa tabi ng drop boxes. Maaari ring mag-donate ng mga kagamitan o cash donation kaakibat ang pagsusumite ng deed of donation form. Pangalawa, mahalaga ang ugnayan ng mga guro at ng mga magulang o tagapangalaga sa programang ito. Gamit ang video calls o chats ay ipahahayag ng mga guro ang adhikain ng programang ito sa mga magulang o tagapangalaga. Maaari ring gawin ang orientation na ito ng face-to-face kasabay ng schedule ng kuhanan ng mga module. Gaya ng nabanggit, hindi lamang mga bagay ang maaaring i-donate. Pwede ring mag-conduct ng tutorial session, study tips, at iba pang mga kagamitan sa pagkatuto gaya ng mga aklat o kaya ay gadgets. Ikatlo, ang requested needs ng ating mga magulang o tagapangalaga ay ililista ng ating NEST focal person. Ang mga coordinator naman ang mag-aayos ng mga ito. Ang advisors ng ating mga mag-aaral, guidance counselor, at iba pang mga guro ay ipaaalam sa ating mga magulang at tagapangalaga ang petsa at oras ng pamimigay ng requested needs na gaganapin sa paaralan. Sabi nga nila, it takes a village to raise a child. Kaya naman aktibo at iba yung pakikilahok ang inaasahan sa pagsasanib puwersa ng paaralan at barangay na siyang tutukoy sa pangangailangan ng bawat Fernandinong mag-aaral at kikilos upang matugunan ito sa tulong at suporta rin ng mga miyembro ng komunidad. Isang malawakang komunidad para sa isang produktibong educational community pantry ay tiyak na lilikha ng iba yung pagkilos upang maging mas magaan at madali ang pagkatuto ng bawat kabataang Fernandino. Kaya naman tandaan, magbigay ayon sa kakayahan, kumuha ayon sa pangangailangan.
Fernandino Teens TV.
Hello, Fernandino Teens! You are still watching Fernandino Teens TV Season 2. Ionic, covalent, and metallic compounds have a wide variety of uses and applications. Here are the examples of ionic compounds. Lithium iodide is used in batteries. It is an excellent conductor of electricity. Sodium fluoride is an ingredient used in oral health products such as toothpaste. It can help fight cavities while strengthening your enamel. Here are some examples of covalent compounds. Water, H2O. It is the most abundant molecule present on the surface of the earth. We all use water for drinking, cleaning, cooking, washing our clothes, watering plants, and many more. Do you love eating samgyeopsal? Do you know that the gas used in portable gas stove is an example of a covalent compound? Butane gas, C4H10, is used in portable stoves, a propellant in aerosols, a heating fuel, a refrigerant, and in the manufacture of a wide range of products. Here are the examples of metallic compounds. Copper wire. Copper is a metal, and copper atoms bond to other copper atoms via metallic bonding. It is ideal for the use of power generation and transmission, as well as electronic product manufacturing. Bronze. Bronze is mainly an alloy of tin and copper. It is commonly used in the manufacture of coins, hardware mounts, furniture trim, ceiling, or wall panels, and all sorts of automobile parts. Let us have a recap of the concepts we have discussed earlier through a concept map. Chemical bonding refers to the formation of a chemical bond between two or more atoms, molecules, or ions to form a new chemical compound. It combines atoms to form compounds. It can be an ionic, covalent, or metallic bond. Ionic bond transfers valence electrons between atoms. Ionic bonds hold together positively charged ions called cations and negatively charged ions called anions. Ionic bonds are formed between metals and nonmetals. The properties of ionic compounds are high melting and boiling points, soluble in water and insoluble in organic solvents, solid at room temperature, and conductor of electricity when dissolved in water. Covalent bonds share valence electrons between atoms. It is generally formed between nonmetals. It can be polar or nonpolar covalent bonds. Covalent bonds can form a single, double, and triple bond. The properties of covalent compounds are low melting and boiling points, insoluble in water and insoluble in organic solvents, may exist in solid, liquid, and gas at room temperature, and don't conduct electricity. Metallic bonds form a sea of electrons that surrounds the positive charged nuclei of interacting metal ions. It is formed between metals. Before we proceed with an evaluation, let me share these quotes with you. The more we share, the more we have. No one has ever become poor by giving. In these trying times of pandemic, Filipinos again show the spirit of bayanihan through the so-called community pantry. This is a noble act to help financially struggling people and provide them with free items such as rice, vegetables, canned goods, and many more. The motto, magbigay ayon sa kakayahan, kumuha batay sa pangangailangan, has inspired a lot of people to contribute to those who are in need. It only proves that despite the crucial and difficult situation we are all facing, we are still capable of sharing what we have with other people. It might be a simple act, yet it brings a ray of hope to others. In Pampanga High School, we also have Pampanga High School Nest Education Community Pantry, which provides free basic school supplies to students. It was all made possible thanks to the generous donations of our stakeholders. At this point, let us see if you have fully understood our discussion today. Have you watched the trending Netflix Korean series, Squid Game? Let us play a game. Identify whether the given compounds are ionic, covalent, or metallic. Draw a square if the compound is an ionic compound. Triangle if it is a covalent compound. And circle if it is a metallic compound. You may write your answers on a sheet of paper or type your answers on the comment box below. Number 1, barium oxide. Excellent. The answer is square. Number 2, sulfur difluoride. Brilliant. The answer is triangle. And number 3, potassium chloride. Correct. The answer is square. Number 4, aluminum foil. Good. The answer is circle. You are the best, Fernandino teens. That is all for today's episode. Thank you for actively participating in our discussion for today. Again, I am Sir Arnel Gomez saying, life is fun when science has begun. God bless and stay safe, everyone. Here are the references used for today's episode.
Ang dami kong natutuhan sa episode ngayong araw. Ang metal at non-metal ay nagpo-form pala ng ionic bond.
Tama. Samantalang ang non-metal to non-metal ay covalent bond. At ang mga metals naman ay metallic bond.
Salamatan natin ang ating teacher lecturer ngayong araw. Kaya naman,
Maraming salamat, sir.
isa na namang makabuluhang talakayan ang ating natunghayan, Fernandino Teens.
Samahan niyo ulit kami sa kapanapanabik na episode ng Fernandino
Teens TV Season 2.
na kung saan ang kabataang Fernandino ay angat sa anting talino.
Bagong umaga, yakapin mo ang bagong pag-asa. Simulan mong abutin ang iyong pangarap na magbibigay dangal sa iyong bukas. Ang suliranin, hindi laging nandyan, dapat mong harapin. Kami iyong kasama sa bawat takin, magkaakbay nating lulutasin. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, ang boses mo ay mahalaga. Dito sa Fernandino Teens TV, ikaw lagi ang bida. Ang mga aral ay ginintuang atin ng bawat guro na siyang gagabay sa iyong pagkamulat. Naway umukit ito sa iyong isipan. Maging mapanuri, sundin ng wasto